Hi everyone. So this video is going to be a full breakdown of all of CR Truth's interactions with the PACE administration and faculty, starting from May 31st up until now. To better understand some of what I'm going to talk about here, we are recommending that everyone go look at our history and context graphic that we posted on our Instagram and Facebook page at CR Truths. So if you haven't seen that yet, go take a look and then come back here. And if you have, let's get into it. This is the movement report. So on May 31st, a current student posted in the Facebook page, The Island of Misfit Toys, which is the MT Facebook page that is private. It has all the current students and alumni in it, as well as the faculty and staff. This student posted and asked why there had been no response to the Black Lives Matter movement from the faculty and staff. The faculty, as well as Amy, go on this post and respond kind of haphazardly, saying that they've been working on something, but it isn't out yet. And surprisingly enough, the students respond on this post saying like they're not surprised. This is very in line with the experience that they've had at PACE thus far as racism and discrimination go. So on June 1st, the next day, an outpouring of testimonies from alumni and current students alike start pouring out about their experiences of racism and discrimination and oppression, all of it. And it's very clear that this has been something that has been under the surface the entire time, that the current students and alumni didn't even necessarily realize, and the faculty certainly didn't think would come to light in this way. And from this huge outpouring that came out, it became very clear that the students needed to communicate with each other, and communication in general needed to happen. So then, on June 2nd, the next day, Amy posts this underdeveloped apology. It's underdeveloped because it really doesn't even begin to address all of the things that are being said by the alumni and current students, the harm that is being shared. And it really focuses on all the things that she's been doing, all the books that she's been reading, and all the steps that she feels she has taken to negate all the realities that the current students and alumni are sharing at this point. On this post, she says that she has determined a time and place for the current students and alumni, the Black current students and alumni, to meet with her and one other faculty member so that they can air their grievances to her directly. All on her terms. No conversation, no poll to ask when we could meet or when anyone was available, just here's the date and time. So we respond as a group, essentially, and say, hey, this can't be the way that this goes. We need to have a conversation all together. We need to gather ourselves. We need to talk to each other and actually hear what we're going through before we even slightly get to a place where we can address you. And certainly that needs to happen on our terms. That can't happen on your terms. That's been the whole problem this entire time. Everything has happened on your terms. She nervously agrees to this and says, sure, you let me know. The following day, on June 3rd, Amy makes a post announcing that she will be taking a social media break. That break has still not ended. That post happens from Amy on June 3rd, and later that day on June 3rd, the Black students and alumni have our Zoom meeting together. The best way to describe the experience of that Zoom is that it was devastatingly beautiful. The reason I say that is because this was a moment where we all got to share with each other the experiences of harm and trauma that we have been holding on to, that we are currently in, that we are currently dealing with. And it was devastating, hearing people say things that they've known for a really long time and just share it finally. And then also hear people who have never said their trauma or harm out loud to anyone before. The beautiful part was the community that was immediately built in that experience. We started seeing each other, actually, and some people even started seeing themselves. You hear someone else saying an experience that they had, and you go, oh, I kind of had that experience too. Wow, I didn't even realize that was an experience I had, or the memory like clicks back in right away. It was astounding. It was also on this call that we determine how we as a group and a community want to move forward, which is essentially the creation of this organization. It wasn't so formal yet, we didn't have a name or anything, but we knew that we as a community wanted to tackle this issue finally and really make the change that we needed to see. It's also important to note that there was an adjunct faculty member and a full-time faculty member on that call with us. So they heard the full history of harm and the action plan that we were taking moving forward. They were fully aware of that. So over the next week, we have a whole bunch of strategy conversations behind the scenes. We are talking to restorative justice facilitators, mental health professionals, consultants, and strategists in general to really solidify how we're going to make this happen and how we can bring this into fruition. So on June 10th is when we start officially organizing all together. We create separate Facebook groups for different racial identities, and we start gathering information and building community with each other. So that involves information gathering, that involves a community call, community Zoom call, just like we did with the Black current students and alumni, we do that with all current students and alumni of color. To have that healing experience, to have that community experience, and we also start collecting documentation. And that's also where, for the next month or so, we are dedicated to just this process. Because collecting documentation can be difficult. People reliving their traumas and writing them down and actually seeing them on paper can be difficult. So part of that process involves getting on a call one-on-one and walking the person through their experience, or just being there to listen so that they can say it out loud before they write it down. Or community calls, where we have calls all together to share our experiences and help each other kind of feel more secure about the experiences we had. Because, we've all been gaslit and made to believe like none of it was real. So that's the next month or so, from June 10th on. The next major thing to happen is on July 13th. While we are organizing and strategizing, Amy and JV call a meeting with all of the current MT students. And on this call, they pretty much avoid talking at all about the events happening on Facebook, other than what's in their control. The first announcement is that they are working with the Office of Multicultural Affairs head, Dr. Santiago, and the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion head, Tiffany Hamilton.
I want to start by saying that this is a serious time of reckoning, and it's not only a time of reckoning for us, but for all of the performing arts industries and all of the universities, especially that are in the performing arts. And we have taken the last 6 weeks to really go deep and try to unpack our history and look very intentionally at what our future is and what our future means. And we are working very closely with Tiffany Hamilton and Denise Santiago to come up with a plan that will bring us some healing and will bring us some sense of direction, and with the absolute intent to become an anti-racist program. And we know that we need help with that, and the university is really working with us to figure out what those next steps are. It's been slow, it's been deep, it's been real, and it's going to affect how we move forward, is going to affect everything from our curriculum to our hiring to our rehearsal practices. And we just need you all to know that it's going to happen, and it's going to happen in a way that has integrity. And that the specifics of that, we are going to have a very specific meeting about in August with Tiffany and Denise. And so what we want to focus on, I just needed to acknowledge that very, very directly. And but we want to focus on this meeting is the fall.
The other major announcement is that Amy announces that she has been promoted to the head of PPA, Pace Performing Arts. She also announces that JV has been promoted to the head of Pace Musical Theater.
I do want to tell you that there are some leadership changes that are happening in PPA. The university has asked Grant and I to take over to run all of PPA. And so that means that I am going to step away from heading up musical theater, and JV is going to be the director of musical, the program head for musical theater for the year. I'm going to be, I know it's big. I'm going to be, Sean Michael, I'm going to be directly involved in lots of things because I can't imagine not. But Grant and I, when we were asked to do this, had determined that we can affect a lot more change if we are in that position, and we feel comfortable with our ability within the university to do that. And so that is our plan.
July 19th, CR Truths reaches out to Dr. Santiago, the head of Office of Multicultural Affairs, to corroborate the claims that Amy and JV have just made. On this call, Dr. Santiago is shocked by what is told to her. She says that she has no idea of an investigation happening into a Facebook page. She didn't know there was a Facebook page, and she didn't know the nature of the post happening on the Island of Misfit Toys. She also is not aware of any action plan being developed with her or Tiffany Hamilton. July 24th, JV makes a post on the Island of Misfit Toys page and says that he, along with Amy and the faculty, are working closely with Tiffany Hamilton and Dr. Santiago to develop long-term and short-term goals and training for the students and faculty. July 31st, the CR Truths Instagram page, YouTube page, and Facebook page are officially launched. All before that, we were developing the name, the concept, trying to make it as official as possible, and we did. So we launched it on July 31st. Between July 24th and the next event, which happens on August 6th, we are kind of upping the ante on our strategy. We're realizing that there's miscommunication happening, there's potential lies being told, people are not communicating with the people that they say they are. It's all very confusing and ultimately upsetting. So in that time, we decide that it is very important that we have a meeting with the president and provost of Pace University to share the grievances and the experiences that have happened directly to the head of Pace, and also to get them to agree to work with us to help change the school for the better. This is where we start developing our abolition requirements and all that stuff. So yeah, in between that time, we are requesting a call with Dr. Santiago because we're thinking that they are just as upset as we are about the lies being told, and maybe they can help us. So they agree to a second call, and she also says that she's going to bring in a woman named Lisa Miles, who is the Title IX director at Pace. And just for context, Title IX is kind of a branch of HR that is dedicated to taking complaints of any sort of misconduct from the school and following that up, creating an investigation around the complaint, and then finding a solution to that problem regarding whatever that issue, entails. So an important person, we think, for what this process is going to be. So on August 6th, we have the second call with Dr. Santiago, and we are introduced to Lisa Miles. On this call, they both again express their upset about the claims that were being made, and they say that they're willing to help. We say that we're really grateful for that, and that we would like a meeting with the president and the provost in order to have all of these grievances be addressed directly. And they can be there. We think that it would be better for them to be there so that everyone can be on the same page and we can develop a plan with the school to address these issues. Their response is disheartening. They said that it was absolutely not possible to meet with the president and the provost, and that they could handle the claims that we were bringing up and the action plan themselves, which we knew was maybe partially true. They could do something, but for the impact that we were seeking, we knew that the president and the provost and anyone else that falls under them needed to be aware of these things and work with us. We get off that call on August 6th, and later that day, PACE admin sends a congratulatory email to Amy and Grant, Grant Kirchek, who we will talk about, but for right now, he is the head of acting, and this email is a congratulatory announcement that they both have been promoted to the co-heads of PACE Performing Arts. So the next day, on August 7th, PACE administration sends out an email that says that they have scheduled an empty town hall. And the purpose of this town hall is to allow the students to voice their concerns. This town hall was scheduled for August 20th. From our call on August 6th with Dr. Santiago and Lisa Miles, they start emailing us saying that they can't get the president and the provost on a call, but they can add some other important names. We didn't ask for that, and we weren't seeking that, and we made that very clear on the call, but they persisted anyways. So on August 13th, we have another call. And this call now is with Dr. Santiago, Lisa Miles, Tiffany Hamilton, the head of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, the new dean of Dyson, which is the Dyson School is the school that kind of umbrellas PACE Performing Arts. So the new dean of Dyson, Tressamaine Grimes, and the new associate dean of Dyson, Bet Kirstein. On this call, they reiterate that a meeting with the president and the provost is absolutely not possible. They say it's so busy, there's not enough time, but that they all are willing to listen and help us in whatever capacity that they can. We again reiterate that while we appreciate them all taking the time to talk with us and that they want to listen, that we really feel that it is vital to the success of these changes that the president and the provost are included in the conversation with all of them there, because they all are important as well. Again, they say it's not possible, and the meeting kind of ends at this kind of stalemate where they're saying no and we're saying, well, this is what we need. And the meeting ends. August 16th, we post our official list of our abolition requirements on our Instagram page for everyone to see. That is still on our Instagram page. If you haven't seen that yet, please go take a look and you'll better understand what this movement is built on. The next day, August 17th, after the abolition requirements were posted publicly, suddenly we get an email that says that the president and the provost have time to meet. They say that they have scheduled it, everyone is on board for August 19th. August 19th, we finally have our meeting with the president and the provost. On our end, we bring 3 of our kind of current student liaisons and also our interim educational committee, which is comprised of both of Amy's original assistants to the program. We had done a lot of prep work for this meeting. We had a full presentation, we had talking points, we knew who was speaking when, and so we launch right into it when the meeting starts. We do introductions, everyone gets to meet each other again, and then we go. So we start by providing a full history of musical theater, both the artistic history of it and the racist history of it. And we say there about how musical theater is constructed, how it's performed, why it's important, all of it. Because these people don't necessarily come from that realm of artistic knowledge. They've probably done art at some point in their life, but we wanted to really reinforce what musical theater was for them before we even got to the point about how PACE is related to this.
I just wanted to provide a little bit of pedagogical context for all of you to understand what musical theater is and what education in musical theater means. Basically, right, it's the intersection of storytelling, performance, music, and dance. In the program that we went through that had a focus on Western and European-centric models of musical theater with an ultimate goal towards Broadway, but musical theater encompasses so much more than that. You know, it's a global tradition. It's ancestral storytelling traditions and knowledges that expand far beyond just a Eurocentric worldview of musical theater. Excuse me. You know, most of us are trained athletes. You know, we trained like our whole lives in singing, acting, and dance to be able to, your senior year of high school, audition for 10 to 20 programs where the rates of acceptance are comparable to Harvard. You know, they take 25 students out of around 800 to 3,000. So all of us were selected very specifically from these giant pools of applicants from around the world.
We talk about rates of acceptance to show how competitive not only PACE musical theater is, but musical theater programs in general in this country are. Really wanting to reinforce that to get into PACE is not easy. And to get into any musical theater program is not easy. It takes a lot of work and a lot of vulnerability on the behalf of the students. After we had explained the origin of PACE and the origin of musical theater itself, we started talking about why we were there that day. And we list the full history of harm spanning over 15 years. And not just like general statements about it. We're giving specific examples because remember, at this point, we have so much documentation, over 150 testimonies and accounts from current student and alumni of color. So we know what we're talking about, and we wanted to make that clear that it wasn't just a group of students and alumni who are, you know, kind of bitter and upset with the program. We wanted them to know this is a real issue that the school has.
Some of the harm, just so you all can understand what students are leaving with from this program, they're leaving with absolutely no sense of themselves as performers. Base level, this is a musical theater program. It should be offering students some kind of sense of themselves as performers. That's what we pay tuition for, and they leave with none. Additionally to that, and probably more primarily to that, high levels of degraded mental health that show up in anxiety and depression and self-doubt and OCD compulsion and even suicidal thoughts at times in some cases. There's no sense of educational skills gained, and in fact, there are most times a decreased ability to actually perform based on the anxiety and treatment that they experience within the program. They leave the program feeling, as mentioned briefly, with a extreme fear of retaliation from the administration because during their time at PACE, they are threatened with slander and defamation of their professional careers if they choose to continue to speak out against the racism and discrimination within the program. Just flat out racist statements being made by faculty members to students. So much so that a faculty member has even been recorded just straight up saying the N-word to current students in order to help them understand their acting intentions. Students being made consistently to perform in derogatory and stereotypical roles, i.e. slaves or prisoners. That is a pretty much consistent theme with students of color. There have been instances where students have been completely ignored their entire time at Pace University. White students are encouraged to commit racially charged harassment because the harassment happens, and when the students communicate to the faculty and the administration that the harassment is happening, no repercussions are issued, and at the most they get a meeting talking about microaggressions, which is not a direct conversation that needs to be happening for students harassing other students in a racially charged way. There have been faculty members and adjunct professors and artists in residence, which are just professionals that come in and work with this current student body, who have specifically created campaigns that degrade and belittle students of color, specifically Black students, just on the basis of race, telling them they aren't good enough, telling them they aren't as good as their white counterparts, telling them that they need to work harder consistently while giving white students passes. And in all of that, completely different standards of performance for students of color versus white students. If a syllabus says that if you're 10 minutes late, you receive a dock to your grade, a white student, it's been documented from both white students and students of color that a white student can show up 10 to 30 minutes late to a class and receive no kind of retaliation educationally. But when a student of color shows up a few minutes late, they get a full dock for the grade. Unfair grading, unfair educational opportunity there. Especially because part of the structure of PACE is if you aren't meeting a certain GPA requirement, you are not allowed to perform in actual shows. And as Rod stated earlier, part of educational opportunities within PACE to offer equal educational opportunities is to say that all students will have a chance to perform. So when the students of color are constantly having lower grades because of this double standard in the actual policies, they do not get the opportunity to perform equally.
And I've witnessed Amy going behind closed doors to get white students' grades up on the academic side so that they can perform in the shows.
Even going so far as pitting students of color against each other, basically encouraging students of color who do not speak out against racism and discrimination by offering them more opportunities, more attention in class, while students who have spoken out against racism and discrimination receive much more neglect and no kind of actual educational plan. Again, I want to
professional life too, right, Alex?
Yes.
So there's a blacklist where they're not recommended. We all came to college for networking opportunities and to build our skills. And once you've spoken out or once you have anything to say, they don't recommend you for anything. Your network opportunities are shot and they slander you to potential job opportunities.
Diminishing educational opportunities within the classroom by allowing white students to perform any kind of material that they'd like because there is no racial bias or stereotype held by the faculty member, while students of color are always pushed to perform solely in whatever racial stereotype that that particular faculty member holds. Students have come to Amy or other faculty members reporting cases of sexual assault and also racial discrimination. Those students were never directed to the Title IX offices, and in fact, some of them were encouraged not to go and not to report it.
Alex, quick question.
Yeah.
So that was reported to Amy. You cited other faculty. Do we know who the other faculty are that?
JV Mercanti has been, students have gone to report to him about sexual assault, and he has not given them the resources, even though he's a mandated reporter, as Amy is as well.
And he's actively put perpetrators of sexual assault with victims of sexual assault in class after they specifically asked to not be in class with the person who assaulted them. And he still forced them to be in class together.
And in scenes together as well. One-on-one scenes.
When it came time for me to present is when we all collectively realized that the things and the harm and the ways that this harm were perpetuated were actually going to be continued in this call, in real time. Provost Quinones interrupts me, tries to invalidate any of my experience from 2015 and 2016, invalidates the claim that, attempts to invalidate the claim that the investigation that happened in 2015 and 2016 was not thorough and did not yield any actual benefits or change.
When we sent those letters, they were met with little to no acknowledgement, and we were told that some actions were going to be taken in order to alleviate this, but none of those actions were actually taken.
Just stop you a second. So I just want to get, so you send a letter,
Mm-hmm.
and did she ignore it? Did she forward it to the I just want to...
She didn't forward it anywhere. When I asked her directly about my letter specifically, she said that it was concise, being 23 pages long. And when I asked for any more information about what I had written in my letter, she had no ability to speak on anything that was said in the letter.
Was that letter email? Was it an email or was it...
Yes, it was email. Yeah, so after that was not really acknowledged, and there was just some kind of general statements around changes that they were going to make to the program potentially. That was the only kind of acknowledgement we got from this. And we actually were aware that the university did open an investigation into this instance.
So that's what I was going to ask you, because I do know that the university opened an investigation in 2016.
Yes,
and that
this is that.
Make changes. So when you say that it's not acknowledged, that's what I want to have. When you say it's not acknowledged, if we did an investigation and we make changes to the program?
Yeah, the changes to the program didn't actually suffice, and they didn't actually do anything that they didn't address any of the issues brought up in the program, as you can see from the current students here, and also throughout this whole process, we basically, after that happened, and there was no direct acknowledgement to the students voicing their concerns. I'm
sorry, but I'm just asking you again. The letter was received. We make an investigation. We acknowledge the letter. We make changes. We investigated the letter. So I just want to, I'm kind of
I understand.
Acknowledgement. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I understand that is how you perceive the situation. I'm speaking from the student body's perception of what happened and what followed.
No, I just want to know the acknowledgement. I want you to elaborate on the acknowledgement aspect of it.
As I have, yes. I acknowledge that there was an investigation by the university.
I was her assistant at the time, and so I'm very aware of the steps that were taken within the department between Amy and Jorge, where they created tension when the diversity officer at the time came in and attempted to work with them. They badmouthed this person and kind of ruined that relationship that might have led to further changes, but just so you're aware of what part of what happened in that so-called investigation.
She also interrupts the current students on the call as they're trying to speak.
Elise, do you have anything to add?
We listen. I want to understand. We understand what you are saying. We're listening. As Marvin said, it's been a pretty charged conversation right now, and a lot of things have been informed to us. We have to work with you, and we're listening, and that's what basically Marvin and I are here and transmit. Once again, we want to acknowledge, and I'm really, really sorry that this is what has been happening, or we were going to work with you. Tiffany is one of our representative of the university. But let's work together. It's almost an hour on the call, and I'm sorry, I really have something to do.
You hear the current students make it very clear, and we reinforce it, that town halls are a thing of the past at this point. Town halls aren't going to do anything. We know how we've been harmed, and we know why we've been harmed, and we know what to do about it. We don't need a town hall to discuss that anymore. Now we need to start developing action.
I am concerned that from leaving this call, I'm not clear on what our current students need in order to feel supported and safe, because I heard very clearly that there's a fear. So can I hear what can we do for the short term and then the commitment to the long term as well?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to note that the demands that Alex listed is a representation of the current student body, and so is this entire movement. So I would just refer y'all to the list that he gave because we composed it. I don't think there is anything more to be said than these people need to be fired. We just told y'all there's over 100 to 150 different people with specific instances per person. Like, even my voice is just getting shaky right now thinking about it. Like, to hear you say, we can only do this through your process. Y'all process doesn't work. That was proven in 2016. And now it's time for y'all to listen to the student body and hear what we have to say and stop making us curtail to y'all system. Because y'all system hasn't been supporting us, or we wouldn't need to be here. And the 150 people that aren't here wouldn't need to have us be representing them in that way. So what can you do for me in the short term? You can make sure that the woman who has made me feel oppressed, invisible, gaslit, silenced, and a myriad of other things not be the woman who is in charge of talking to every professional that's going to meet me at Pace University, who's going to be in charge of literally every interaction that I have at the university, and who's going to have the power to once again gaslight me as she has in the past, once again ruin professional opportunities for me as she has, or attempt to ruin professional opportunities as she has for me in the past. So as far as protection goes, I think Alex's list was very comprehensive. And if y'all want to label that as long-term, there's not some packaged panel committee that's gonna solve these issues and make me feel comfortable going back to school with a woman who has consistently perpetuated anti-Blackness for a decade and a half.
No more town halls, because I've had dozens and dozens of town halls with Amy Rogers and JV Mercanti, and they have gone unheard and gaslit. So this idea of let's have a town hall now and hear out the students is too late. It's too late, because I've already expressed so many instances and reported things to faculty that have gone unheard. So
the fact that y'all are surprised by this is a perfect indicator that they're not reporting anything to the offices that they are mandated to report them to. Otherwise, any one of the 150 people behind this movement would have been in contact with y'all.
Elise, do you have anything to
Let's
add?
say that we listen.
But for current students, please, if you don't want the town hall, let me know, talk to me.
On that call, they say that they would like the current students to say what they need from them. And the current students literally say, no more town halls. And they completely disregard that. So this meeting that was led with this kind of intention of, oh, we're here to listen and we're here to help, completely flips on its head. The part that really kind of illuminated the reality that we were in at that moment and who we were dealing with is at the very end, they all say kind of two things. The first thing that's said is that we asked them if they would be willing to help us achieve these changes and make this change in an impactful, real way for the current students and for the alumni. And their response is that they need time to digest.
So we're sitting as a leadership team digesting all that has been deposited into this space.
So we will continue to meet and talk, and we can set up a sort of a report back. I would encourage you to think about working in a way that you can consider us allies here. And that's because that's what we are. And we really do care about what you've said, and we are sorry for what has happened, and we want to make things better, not only for the current students, but the future students. And to the extent we can do things to help alumni, we will absolutely look at that as well.
We hear you. We're working. Hopefully we can have those touch points of collaboration. And so maybe we can talk offline on when we want to schedule that follow-up. So I definitely just want to thank y'all for making the time to be in this space and sharing what you've shared. And we will keep this as a high priority moving forward.
Which, of course, partially you can understand. So in that time, we weren't actually even thinking that that was the worst thing that they could have said. We agreed to give them time to process what we had said and come back to us with a response. The other thing that made it very clear who we were dealing with is when Provost Quinone says that she can no longer be on the call, the hour's up, and the reason that she can't be on the call is because she has a donor on the other line.
Use me as a resource to help you do that.
So we want to thank you all. I think we want to thank you all. We are, as I said before, we listen. We are going to reconvene, and we are committed to make changes for Cindy and for all the current students Abudu. My commitment, Transpin commitment, Tiffany commitment, Marvin.
Okay, I think
I let you talk. Let me just finish. Thank you. Our commitment is to make the environment in a better place and to face the accusations that you guys made today, which are pretty serious. We're going to look into them. So this is our commitment to this group. We hear your demands. Our commitment is to look into the accusations and to fix the environment that we're working in. And we will get back to you guys because, we're serious on this thing and we're really all absorbing the accusations, which are pretty deep. So we're just going to work on this. Thank you.
But the processes that you go through are what has gotten us here today. It's what has gotten you 150 students and alumni who have experienced hurt in your halls. So with all due respect, your processes do not suffice, and they do not create the change that we need. We will create the change we need.
Okay, I thank you, and thank you, for caring about your institution. I thank you for really making this movement. And as we say before, we're listening to you, and we will get back to you. Thank you so much. And I really, our ears are open, our heart is open, and the institution is here to move forward and learn from mistakes and make a better institution. So I'm sorry, I have a donor waiting for me. I have to work on something right now.
The experiences and the full history of harm and everything that we were trying to share with them wasn't significant enough to stay on the call because someone who was going to give the school money was waiting. Time went by. We had said that we would wait until the end of the week to hear some kind of response, and we heard nothing. So we got off this call and we were very upset, obviously very disheartened, and kind of coming into even further realities about who we were dealing with, not just in PACE MT, but PACE overall. And so we wanted to be thorough, and we wanted to know specifically who we were dealing with. And in our research, we found a very illuminating video about President Krislov, which is this.
Oberlin, Ohio. It is 35 miles from Cleveland, home to this small liberal arts college. It's called Oberlin College. The school has a progressive reputation, known to be the first U.S. college to admit African-American students and the first to grant degrees to women. And this community here in Ohio boasts the legacy of inclusion and respect for diversity. But that is far from what students here have been feeling in the wake of 15 hate-related events in the past month. With all of these incidents happening over the course of a month, why yesterday be the first day that classes are canceled?
Well, suspending formal classes is very unusual, as you can imagine.
Are those what is that behind you, sir? Can you just fill me in?
I gather there's some students yelling behind me.
Some students yelling behind. Can you continue on? I can't make out what they're shouting. Would you like to end the interview?
This is very hard to.
Okay, let's just call it.
I think we're done. Thank you.
Okay, let's call it. Okay.
Bye-bye.
There we go. That was the President Marvin Krislov from Oberlin College.
In that video, we learned that the person at the top of Pace University, the one that we had been aiming to kind of have a point of communion with this whole time, left being president of another institution because there was an uprising against racism and racist events happening at Oberlin College. It became clear after that research and after that call and knowing what we know about President Krislov now that we were coming for help and no one was going to respond to that call for help. And they were not interested in helping us. So we had to regroup and re-strategize.